not be a physician. He may be the chief administrator of the hospital, and he's doing some financial analysis now and budget process. And so you're going to, as an intelligent agent, work with him with a whole different set of context rules.
Absolutely.
Could you talk about that?
The issue, when I go back to, it's picking up the clues from the environment, right? If I'm going into a portal that says patient diagnoses, I'm in that process, right? So, you've heard terms of contextual collaboration and other things, right? So I'm now in that process of diagnosing somebody. When I go into that screen, the services, the databases that are looked at, the other things, I'm not going to go look at the Financial Times, for instance, and analyze stuff. If I'm doing competitive analysis from the financial world and trying to decide how hospitals are saving money, I may look at the FT and see what kind of articles people are writing about hospitals and cost savings, right? But if I'm diagnosing a patient, I'm not going to be looking at that stuff. I'm going to be looking at medical text and rule bases and other things that can help me do that diagnosis. It's going to know from the context of the work that you're doing, right? And it's picking up, and that's when I talk about in the IBM parlance that focus of attention, right? My attention is on this process of diagnosing a patient. The information sources that I have, the people that show up, because I think the instant messaging thing is one of the best examples of that. If I'm doing this and I start narrowing down the diagnoses, I'm going to have the instant messaging list start showing people at the hospital who've dealt with that problem before, right? So that'll get populated, and it'll get narrowed down. I mean, you could actually, I've seen some examples of this in call centers, is as you get the problem, the list of names and the instant messaging stuff gets shorter because there's more specialization, and it's finding the better matches for those people. So I think those, that's how it will manifest itself. And it's really, if you think about the kind of tabs across the top of a portal now, where you shift from, my company, whatever I have, my HR stuff, my manufacturing, if I'm in manufacturing, my R&D views. I think this will be much more virtual. You won't necessarily have tabs that drive you there. Right now, we're actually coaching companies to build those tabs because that's the best way to get the clues, right? The adaptive stuff isn't working yet to its potential, so you have to build physical shifts in that change the attention, right? So if I'm looking at a manufacturing thing, I want to be able to, if I want to find human resources stuff, when I click on the tab at the top and shift from manufacturing to human resources, I'm now shifting my context. I'm shifting the databases that are being looked at, and then as I get more finite into the transaction that I'm doing, I'm going to get even more information, right? So if I go in and say, I want to change my, I want to take vacation, so I go into the vacation form, it may automatically pop up a vacation policy, right? And other kinds of vacation facts and other things that are not physically linked via explicit links in HTML or XML. They're actually generated from the system saying these documents are the most relevant to the kind of task you're performing.
I'm wondering if you see this really predominantly appearing as separate products or services in terms of middleware and agents, or, I'm reminded a little bit of the AI.
Yeah.
There's sort of this exciting opportunities with natural language and AI, and now they're all embedded.
Yeah.
Someone writes an MRP, and within it there's some smarts. To take the doctor example, would it really be the case that 10 years from now, I as a physician at Kaiser would actually have an intelligent content meta layer that understands what I've engaged in, or would my clinical system end up having that service now embedded within it, so when I'm interacting within that clinical system, it's doing this internal piece?
Right, maybe both, because when we talk about generalizing, there's always the difference between the general and the specific, right? So as we do day-to-day work, right, as we're doing content creation, content development, interaction and collaboration, there needs to be, one of the reasons that we also thought about this and why we talked about collaboration is that the collaboration vendors are having a problem trying to figure out how to get people to use their capabilities, right? So as I started off, you've got these worldwide distributed organizations. How do I find the right people to work with? That's a very generic, horizontal problem that I can't deal with in a specific situation. I can, right? I can come up with solutions, as I showed right now. I can put in, ask me in QuickPlace, and boom, I've got some connection to people that I may not know, right? Wouldn't it be nice if that was a service and anywhere I had a collaborative opportunity, there was something like this Ask Me engine that was presenting me with people that I could work with if I wanted that, right? So those kinds of things I think are going to be generic. When I get down to somebody has invested money to build a specific database for diagnosing a patient or for doing hospital administration or something else, that may have a specialized engine in it. But I think there is going to be this horizontal middleware layer that has those capabilities. And also from the development standpoint, wouldn't it be nice if we had some capabilities that we could leverage so that we were not putting in a lot of individual technologies, that we could build those solutions on top of a plumbing layer like we do with relational databases, right? So we build a lot of very specific solutions based on a generic technology. Wouldn't it be nice if the middleware layer were a little bit bigger than databases and networking protocols and had some of these other features in it, right? Does not get away from, there will be invention that will say, whatever IBM, Microsoft, Oracle end up doing, and they put in this thing, some company has a great idea and revolutionizes something and it's not in there, and so I have to go buy that if I want that particular capability. That's the nature of the business we're in, or we all be sitting back with NEX and big HP calculators.
But what the key issue is right now with integration of a lot of these technologies is that the cost of integration, take a look at things like ERP systems, is meters. And as the complexities of collaboration increase, you have a combinatorial explosion in the number of possibilities. So unless you have some way of bringing it back down together, a lot of this stuff never gets deployed together in an economically effective form. And I guess the key thing I keep hearing over and over again is I keep hearing the rough edges grinding against the beautiful vision. And I hate to be the gentleman who points that out, but that's where a lot of there's very little money invested in research for those kinds of issues, if at all any.
Right.
And yet that's the thing that kind of gums up the works and keeps any of the ways to do this from really integration. So I'm not hearing that.
Right. Well, and that, as I said, that's one of the roles that I play, both from the R&D standpoint. I'm talking to software companies and I'm pointing those rough edges out to them. So I'm sitting at Microsoft and IBM and other places and saying, when you ask me why people aren't using collaboration, I'm telling you here's some issues. And by the way, when I'm walking in the labs, I'm not seeing people working on this. You need to work on this right now. And I'm also telling end user clients that, this is, your end users are telling me, because IT sometimes is disconnected from the business, right? So I'm telling them, for their end users, right? Your end users are telling me certain things. They don't know where to work. You've got too many collaboration products, right? I mean, I have multiple speeches that I can use. One of them is on the fact that companies have invested in too many collaboration options, right? They've got eRoom, OpenText, Microsoft Public Folders, Lotus Notes, intranets, et cetera, right? So they've got too much infrastructure and they haven't come to an architecture for collaboration, and we actually work through that with companies. But they're also not going back because they're dealing with these day-to-day tactical issues and demanding that, gee, our end users are telling us that they have information management problems, right? And what happens is companies make an investment to deal with these problems. The rough edges right now are all dealt with people. Again, it's another presentation I have. But you are making an explicit decision as a business that when you have too many collaboration platforms, when you don't know what's going on in the organization, you're implicitly making the decision that you aren't going to be as efficient as you could be, right? You recognize that the enterprise is multinational, geographically distributed, and I don't have the best solution, right? You've decided not to buy something that's going to identify the people who could best connect. Even if it's only 10% of the time efficient, it's going to give you, pretty high returns and probably pay for itself. Right? But you've decided not to do that. It's okay to do business the way we're doing it. We've done business this way, and it's okay to do that. And on the collaborative front, if you've got all these disconnected collaboration environments, you're explicitly paying for people to transport documents. Great, one of the big things, and continues to be a strong selling item, is supply chain management, right? People are still dealing with supply chain management. Most of the supply chain management things have collaboration built into them. And one of the behaviors that we see is, gee, I'm over here collaborating with my supply chain people, and I'm about to find out the factory's going to shut down. Hold on. Now I shift over here to tell the factory that they're about to shut down, and we have a collaborative conversation about what to do about that. Two different systems. I'm the conduit. I'm making the shift. Right? I'm bringing the data from one place to another. Don't have integration. Right? So there are rough edges. You know, we do point them out. This one is just to kind of get your, you know, consensus and or brains moving and saying, gee, should we do this kind of stuff, and having these kind of conversations. So, yes.
When I'm listening to the vision that's happening here, in my mind, it translates primarily as a company enterprise vision. I know that's not the limits of what you're thinking, though. Could you tell me a little bit how this changes when we start thinking about my interactions, not just being the team I work with in my company, but this whole world-connected internet, and how does that change things?
Well, the primary way, I mean, from the enterprise standpoint, you know, we're talking about identifying partnerships, right? And as I said, the enterprises are now outside the boundaries of your hierarchy, which defines both who is in the company and the boundaries of the physicality of the company. You know, wherever those people are located is where the company is physically. Those boundaries are false, right? So one of the issues, right, and it's not in my open issues list, but you know, as we talk about the internationalization or the network capabilities, you know, these are things that when we hinge on privacy, you know, how much of this gets out, right? How much of this do you leverage, right? I could put these technologies on and apply these to MSN groups, right? I could analyze the content in MSN groups. I could analyze content in blogs and wikis and other places, do the same kind of technology around this, and we may very well see, because as I said, a lot of this is academic research that's been converted into commercialized product. We could certainly see some open source group decide that they're going to create, you know, a naive Bayes enhanced, you know, pattern recognition thing that goes out and reads blogs and suggests organization of blogs and gives you a customized portal based on that, right? That could happen.
I was wondering if that would sort of generate a natural tendency to an interface standard, you know, much as we've seen in security and web services and things like this, so that your enterprise content engine can be able to reach out and tell Google or some service that you've perhaps contracted with, who's looking at the global internet, and say, you know, I'm doing this content management internally. What do you know on this topic or subject?
Well, we see some of that already. RSS is a standard for news feeds, for instance, or for subscription services on the internet. So RSS is a standard. If I present my content as an RSS interface, I can actually subscribe to that content. I can then mine it just like it's mine. The stuff that you saw with Enfish are RSS headlines coming in. So they're using the subscription service to manage that. So I can do that, right? What I can't do from the, you know, on is that I'm going to be able to leverage the world, right? And believe me, I've had conversations with the UN about this as well. You know, being able to leverage the world and say, who out there is related to this kind of stuff. Now I can mine websites, I can subscribe to websites, I can bring websites in-house, I can do some of that information, right? As I said early on with the SARS stuff, right? They were looking at various places, they had people mining those pieces of you know, pieces of content, they knew where to look, right? You could create a system that interfaced with those various places, create a standard for content, and make that even more efficient. But I don't see that happening in a broad sense. Right? I see that happening kind of opportunistically.
So you see little niche communities that spawn that.
Yeah, and then from the, you know, we've had long discussions with myself and with the content management group within Google around the issue of what happens with interface standards. We are not dealing with standards in the same way on this kind of stuff as we have with email and other things, right? There's very few collaboration standards, there's very few content standards. Right? We don't have standard, you know, one of the